Well, here on World Insight, we are, of course, going to start off with a big story this week, which was the global economy. Now, under the theme of a new commitment to the Asia-Pacific development, the APEC annual summit met in Lima in Peru. As part of efforts to battle world economic crises, one action the leaders promised to take is to open up markets and to free trade. But as unemployment rates continue to climb, observers wonder whether that promise can really be put into action.
On Monday, Citigroup revealed plans to cut 52,000 jobs by early next year. It's one of the biggest layoffs in the company's history and will shrink Citigroup's workforce by 20% from its 2007 peak of 375,000.
Well, it's a tough situation for the markets. I mean, I think there's nothing else you can do. It's very tough now to get another job. So,
what were you told?
I haven't been told anything actually. I'm going to the office right now, so.
According to the U.S. Department of Labor, as of November 11th, there were 516,000 first-time claims for unemployment, and claims above 400,000 are considered a sign of recession. Last week, thousands of job seekers endured the rain in Midtown Manhattan, hope mixed with desperation.
Well, hopefully electronics, like cable companies, telephone companies, something like that. Anything, like I said, basically anything right now that I can get, get some money in the family.
Full employment, steady economic growth, low inflation, and a stable exchange rate and balanced international trade are the four targets of macroeconomic policy. And full employment tops the list, for its benefits go beyond higher wages and more jobs to include reduced poverty and crime rates. So when employment drops, that means trouble for the government.
Generally speaking, when the unemployment rate goes up, the government will face pressure, socially and economically. To ensure full employment and to protect domestic vulnerable industries from the outside competition, policymakers tend to shut borders to imported goods or services.
Some analysts have warned of the protectionist line Barack Obama will likely take after he takes office as the U.S. president. On his website for the transition period, Obama promises to fight for a trade policy that opens up foreign markets to support good American jobs. And elsewhere, fears have been on the rise that the Americans will introduce new rules to boost their own industries as the global recession takes hold. History has shown that closing the door to the outside market can't cushion the shock of economic crisis. The stock market crash of October 1929 may have provoked a financial economic crisis, but it was tariffs that provoked a wave of foreign retaliation, plunging the world deeper into the Great Depression. Overall, world trade declined by some two-thirds between 1929 and 1934. In an interview with the Financial Times, Pascal Lamy, the head of the World Trade Organization, warns against protectionist temptation. He believes there was a collective way of handling the crisis. And Lamy cited the example of free trade in the aftermath of the 1998 Asian financial crisis, which he thinks enabled the world's economy to recover more quickly. A week ago, G20 leaders gathered in Washington, D.C. for the first Global Economic Summit. They pledged to work together to restore global growth. And one concrete measure they will take is to avoid raising any barriers to trade and investment over the coming year.
I am pleased with the progress we're making to, one, address the current crisis. I am pleased that we're discussing a way forward to make sure that such a crisis is unlikely to occur again. And I am pleased that the leaders reaffirm the principles behind open markets and free trade. One of the dangers during a crisis such as this is that people will start implementing protectionist policies.
And this decision is echoed by leaders at the annual meeting of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, or APEC. APEC has 21 members spanning 4 continents. They represent the most economically dynamic region in the world and account for approximately half of the world's population, trade, and GDP. It has evolved into a regional economic cooperation organization with the most member economies of the largest scale and the highest level. Before the summit, APEC finance ministers agreed to apply the principles of free trade and international cooperation in battling the global economic crisis. Professor Chai says the crisis makes it even more crucial for APEC members to reach a consensus on promoting trade and investment.
First of all, in the past 20 years, the expansion of world economy is mainly due to the growth of countries in the Asia-Pacific region, especially exports from East Asia. But these countries are under great pressure when their export destination is hit by the financial crisis. Second, East Asia is a main source of the American trade deficit and is criticized by some trade protectionists as sowing the seeds for the current crisis. How to deepen trade and economic cooperation require efforts from both sides.
Since the end of the Second World War, trade flows have increased much faster than world population, and even faster than overall world economic growth. It was trade expansion that initially fueled the post-war economic miracles in Germany and Japan. More recently, it's become the engine of development across many Asian developing countries, transforming the economy of countries like South Korea and Singapore into near Western standards of living. The World Bank estimates further trade liberalization in the Doha round of trade talks could increase real income in developing countries by as much as $350 billion by 2015 and lift an additional 140 million people out of poverty. Trade has been the driving force of world economic growth in the last 50 years. To supporters of globalization, 2008 may not be a good year. But free trade won't soon grind to a halt.
Well, let's stick with that because both domestic and international economies benefit from more specialization in goods and services, more competitiveness and a diffusion in technology. And these are even more important during times of financial turmoil. That's why both the G20 summit and the APEC meeting push members to continue commitment to liberalizing trade. We're going out to a short break, but up next, our second story when we look at the US military presence in Iraq.